I watched my 14-year-old nephew Tyler drive his fist straight through the center of my daughter's unicorn birthday cake. Pink and purple frosting exploded across the patio table as he screamed, "This party is boring!" 20 guests stared in stunned silence before nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. My father-in-law Gerald chuckled and shrugged. Kids will be kids, right? Emma stood frozen beside the destroyed cake, her 12-year-old face crumpling, as tears began forming in her eyes. The meticulously planned celebration lay in sugary ruins while everyone waited for my reaction. The world seemed to slow down as I processed what had just happened. Emma's unicorn cake, the one she had picked out 3 weeks ago and talked about every single day since, was completely destroyed. Chunks of vanilla sponge mixed with demolished fondant decorations scattered across our patio table. The pink unicorn horn lay broken in half, and the rainbow mane was smeared beyond recognition. Emma remained perfectly still, as if moving might make this nightmare real. Her small hands trembled at her sides, and I could see her fighting back tears with everything she had. This was supposed to be her special day. We had spent months planning this party together, and she had been so excited about sharing it with her cousins and friends. My brother Marcus stepped forward, barely glancing at his son's destruction. "Tyler, tell your cousin you're sorry," he said in the same tone he might use to ask someone to pass the salt. There was no urgency in his voice, no real concern about what had just happened. Tyler crossed his arms defiantly and shook his head. "No way. This whole party is stupid anyway." His voice carried that particular teenage smugness that made my jaw clench. He looked around at the other kids as if expecting them to agree with him. Gerald laughed again, louder this time. "Oh, come on, Ambrose. He's 14. You remember what it was like being that age, right? Everything's boring when you're 14. He waved his hand dismissively as if Tyler had simply knocked over an empty plastic cup instead of deliberately destroying the centerpiece of his granddaughter's birthday party. The 20 guests shifted uncomfortably. Some of Emma's school friends looked shocked and confused. A few adults chuckled nervously, clearly unsure how to react. Mrs. Henderson from next door studied her shoes. The Johnsons from down the street whispered to each other behind their hands. My wife Sarah emerged from the kitchen, carrying a stack of napkins, having heard the commotion. When she saw the destroyed cake and Emma's devastated expression, her face went pale. She looked at me with wide eyes, silently asking what we should do next. The memories of planning this party flooded back. Emma had spent hours browsing party supply websites, carefully selecting purple and pink decorations. She had drawn pictures of how she wanted the table to look and practiced introducing her school friends to her cousins. We had ordered special unicorn-themed plates and cups, and she had helped me hang streamers in her favorite colors around the patio. Just last week, she had told me this would be the best birthday ever, because all her favorite people would be together. She had been especially excited that Tyler was coming because he rarely visited anymore since my brother's divorce. "Marcus, your son, just destroyed Emma's birthday cake," I said, keeping my voice level despite the anger building in my chest. "This isn't about being 14, this is about basic respect." Marcus shrugged, echoing his father's dismissive attitude. "Accidents happen, Ambrose. No need to make a federal case out of it. We can get another cake from the grocery store." "Accident." I stared at him in disbelief. He punched it deliberately and called the party stupid. "Kids say things they don't mean when they're upset," Marcus replied. "Besides, it's just cake." "You're embarrassing Tyler by making such a big deal out of nothing." Gerald nodded vigorously. "Exactly. Families should stick together, not create drama over something so minor. Emma will get over it." I looked around at the faces surrounding us. Some relatives were nodding in agreement with Gerald and Marcus. Others looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. A few of Emma's friends had started crying because the party atmosphere had turned so ugly. That's when I realized what needed to happen. This wasn't about the cake anymore. It was about teaching Emma that when someone hurts her deliberately, there should be consequences. It was about showing her that her feelings mattered, even when other people tried to dismiss them. "You're right, Gerald," I said calmly. "Family should stick together. Family should also protect each other and show respect." I raised my voice so everyone could hear clearly. "This party is over. I need everyone to please leave now." The patio fell silent, except for the sound of wind chimes jingling in the afternoon breeze. Gerald's face turned red. "Now you're just being ridiculous, Ambrose. You're overreacting and embarrassing everyone. What kind of message does this send to the children?" Several relatives began murmuring their agreement. Aunt Patricia clicked her tongue disapprovingly. Uncle Robert shook his head. Even some of the neighbors looked uncomfortable with my decision. "The message it sends," I said, "is that when someone deliberately hurts a member of our family, there are consequences." I kept my voice steady and calm, even though my heart was pounding. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice, but speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "This is crazy, Ambrose. You're punishing everyone because a teenager acted like a teenager. Dad's right. You're creating family drama over nothing." Sarah moved to stand beside me, her hand briefly touching my arm in support. Emma remained frozen by the ruined cake table, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "Emma, honey, why don't you go inside with Mom?" I said gently. "I'll handle this." As Sarah led our devastated daughter toward the house, I turned back to the crowd of relatives and neighbors who were now openly arguing about whether my reaction was appropriate. Some sided with Gerald and Marcus, others supported my decision. And the whole situation was spiraling into exactly the kind of family drama I had hoped to avoid. But as I watched Emma disappear through the sliding glass door, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs, I knew I had made the right choice. The party was indeed over. The house felt eerily quiet after the last guest left our driveway. Some had departed with supportive hugs and promises to call later. Others had left shaking their heads and muttering about my extreme overreaction. The Hendersons from next door had offered to help clean up, but I assured them we could handle it. I found Emma curled up on her bed, still wearing her purple birthday dress, but with her face buried in a pillow. Sarah sat beside her, gently stroking her hair and speaking in soft, comforting tones. "Is the party really over?" Emma asked when she saw me in the doorway. Her voice was muffled and small. "Yes, sweetheart, it's over." I sat down on the other side of her bed. "I'm so sorry Tyler ruined your special day. That was completely wrong, and you didn't deserve it." Emma sat up slowly, her eyes red and puffy. "Why did he do that?" "Dad, I thought he liked me. I was so excited he was coming to my party." The question pierced through my chest. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that sometimes people hurt others for no good reason? How do you help them understand that cruelty often comes from people we trust? "I don't know why he did it, Emma. But I want you to know that what happened today says nothing about you. You planned a beautiful party, and you should be proud of how much effort you put into making it special." She nodded, but still looked confused and hurt. "Uncle Marcus said it was just an accident, and Grandpa Gerald said kids will be kids." Maybe I am overreacting. "No," I said firmly. "You are not overreacting. What Tyler did was deliberate and mean, and your feelings about it are completely valid. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. "Dad's right, honey. You have every right to be upset. What Tyler did was wrong, period." After we got Emma settled with a movie and some leftover birthday ice cream, Sarah and I retreated to my home office. The afternoon sun was beginning to fade, casting long shadows across the desk, where I kept all our financial paperwork. "I keep thinking about Tyler's college fund," I told Sarah as I powered up my laptop. "I've been contributing to that account for 14 years. 14 years of putting money aside for his future, because I believed he deserved opportunities." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You're not seriously thinking about the college fund right now, are you?" "Actually, I am." I opened my banking website and navigated to the education savings account I'd established the month Tyler was born. The balance showed $47,312, nearly $50,000 that I had accumulated through careful saving and investing over the years. I thought back to all the sacrifices I had made to build this fund, working overtime shifts at the software company where I worked as a senior engineer, skipping family vacations to Mexico and Colorado that Sarah and Emma had wanted to take, packing my lunch every single day for work instead of buying restaurant meals, driving my 10-year-old Honda Civic instead of upgrading to the newer model I'd wanted. Every month for the past 14 years, I had transferred $500 from my checking account into Tyler's education fund. Some months it was easy. Other months, when unexpected expenses arose, or when Sarah's freelance graphic design work was slow that $500 meant eating generic groceries and postponing home repairs. But I had done it gladly, because I believed Tyler deserved the same opportunities Emma would have. Marcus had always struggled financially, jumping from one sales job to another, never quite achieving the stability that would allow him to save for Tyler's future. I had stepped up to be the uncle who made sure Tyler could attend college without crushing student debt. "What are you thinking?" Sarah asked, watching me scroll through the account history. "I'm thinking about transferring this money to Emma's college fund instead," I said. Tyler just destroyed her birthday party and showed complete disrespect for our family. Meanwhile, I've been sacrificing for 14 years to secure his future. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "That's a pretty big step, Ambrose. Are you sure you want to make such a major decision while you're angry?" "I'm not angry anymore," I realized. "I'm disappointed. Disappointed in Tyler, disappointed in Marcus for not raising him better, and disappointed in myself for enabling this behavior by continuing to reward it." I opened Emma's education savings account, which currently held $12,000. We had started it later and hadn't been able to contribute as consistently due to supporting Tyler's fund. "Think about the message this sends," I continued. Tyler deliberately hurts, Emma destroys her special day, shows no remorse, and gets defended by his father and grandfather. Meanwhile, Emma handles the situation with grace and maturity, and she's the one who ends up suffering. Sarah nodded slowly. "When you put it like that, it does seem backwards. Marcus always talks about how hard Tyler has it because of the divorce and their financial struggles. But Emma deals with challenges too. She's watched me work extra hours to help Tyler's family. She's never complained when we couldn't afford things she wanted because I was prioritizing Tyler's college fund. I started the transfer process, moving the entire balance from Tyler's account to Emma's. The bank website asked me to confirm the transaction multiple times, warning that it was a large amount. "Are you really doing this?" Sarah asked. "I'm really doing this." I clicked the final confirmation button. "I'm also setting up notifications so Marcus will know immediately when the money moves." As I configured the account alerts, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and nervousness. This was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Marcus would be furious. Gerald would probably call me every name in the book. Some family members would think I'd gone too far. But as I remembered Emma's devastated expression when Tyler destroyed her cake, and the way Marcus had dismissed it as no big deal, I knew I was making the right choice. The transfer completed with a simple confirmation message. Funds successfully moved to Emma Catherine Morrison Education Fund. Account holder will be notified via email and text message. "There," I said, closing the laptop. "It's done." Sarah looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You realize Marcus is going to completely lose it when he gets that notification right." "I know. But maybe it's time he faced some consequences for how he's raising Tyler. Maybe it's time Tyler learned that actions have real results." What I didn't expect to discover was that the bank records would reveal something even more disturbing about my brother's character. As I waited for Marcus's reaction, I had no idea that 14 years of trust were about to unravel in ways I never could have imagined. But I was about to find out that Tyler's behavior at the party was just the tip of a much larger iceberg of deception and entitlement that had been growing beneath the surface of our family relationships for years. The notification was set, the money was transferred, and somewhere across town, Marcus's phone was about to buzz with news that would change everything between us forever. The call came exactly 43 minutes after I completed the transfer. Sarah and I were in the kitchen helping Emma decorate sugar cookies as a small consolation for her ruined party when my phone started buzzing aggressively across the counter. "Marcus," I said, glancing at the caller ID. "Don't answer it," Sarah suggested. "Let him cool down first." But I knew avoiding the conversation would only make things worse. Better to get this over with. I accepted the call and immediately held the phone away from my ear as Marcus's voice exploded through the speaker. "What the hell did you do?" He screamed so loudly that Emma looked up from her cookies with wide eyes. "You moved Tyler's college money." "Are you out of your mind?" "Marcus, calm down. We can discuss this rationally." "Rationally?" His voice cracked with fury. "You just stole $47,000 from my son because he acted like a normal teenager at a birthday party. That's not rational. That's vindictive and cruel." I walked into my office and closed the door, hoping to spare Emma from hearing more of this confrontation. "Tyler didn't act like a normal teenager, Marcus. He deliberately destroyed Emma's birthday cake and showed no remorse whatsoever. So you decided to punish him by stealing his future. The money was promised to Tyler. You've been building that fund since he was born. You can't just take it away because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. The money was never Tyler's, Marcus. It was in my name in an account I created and funded entirely by myself. I can move it wherever I choose." This is insane. Marcus's breathing was heavy and ragged. "You're destroying your relationship with your nephew over a stupid cake. What kind of monster punishes a child by taking away his college education?" I felt my own anger beginning to rise. The kind of uncle who's tired of watching his brother make excuses for inexcusable behavior. Tyler isn't a child, Marcus. He's 14 years old and he knew exactly what he was doing when he destroyed Emma's party. You're sick, Ambrose. This is sick. I'm calling a lawyer. That money was promised to Tyler, and everyone in the family heard you make that promise. You can't just change your mind because you're angry? Actually, I can. And I did. I opened my laptop and pulled up the banking website again. In fact, I'm looking at the account right now and I'm discovering some interesting things about how you've been handling Tyler's college fund. The line went quiet except for Marcus's heavy breathing. "What are you talking about?" he asked, but his voice had lost some of its aggressive edge. "I'm talking about the withdrawals, Marcus. Multiple $500 withdrawals over the past 8 months. Withdrawals you never mentioned to me. Withdrawals that total almost $3,000. Silence. "Marcus, are you still there?" "Those were emergencies," he said, finally, his voice much quieter now. "Tyler needed things for school. The car needed repairs. I was going to pay it back." "Pay it back with what money you told me last month you were struggling to make rent. You told me you couldn't afford Tyler's school supplies, which is why I bought them directly and had them shipped to your house. It's complicated, Ambrose. You don't understand my situation. Then explain it to me. Explain how you've been secretly withdrawing money from Tyler's college fund while telling me you're broke. Explain how you knew Tyler was planning to disrupt Emma's party." But I never said Tyler was planning anything. "Really?" "Because I'm pretty sure you just told me he was acting like a normal teenager. How would you know his behavior was normal unless you expected it?" Another long pause. I could hear Marcus moving around, probably pacing in his living room the way he always did when he was stressed. "Look, Tyler mentioned that he thought Emma's parties were kind of over the top. But I never thought he would actually do anything about it. Kids complain about stuff all the time. It doesn't mean they're planning sabotage." "So you knew Tyler had negative feelings about Emma's party, and you brought him anyway without warning me or preparing him to behave appropriately. I can't control everything Tyler thinks or feels. He's a teenager. They're moody and unpredictable. I shook my head even though Marcus couldn't see me. No, Marcus. You can't control his thoughts, but you can absolutely control his actions. You can teach him respect and consequences. You can hold him accountable when he hurts people. This is ridiculous. You're punishing Tyler for being a normal kid, and you're punishing me for trying to manage an impossible situation as a single father. I'm not punishing anyone, Marcus. I'm redirecting my financial support toward a child who actually appreciates it and shows respect for her family. This isn't over, Ambrose. I'm calling Dad. I'm calling Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert. The whole family needs to know what you've done. You can't just steal from family members and expect everyone to support you. Go ahead and call them. Tell them the whole story, including the part where you've been secretly using Tyler's college money for your own expenses. Those were legitimate expenses for Tyler's benefit. Were they because the bank records show withdrawals on dates when you told me you couldn't afford to take Tyler school shopping? They show withdrawals right before you bought that new fishing boat you've been posting about on social media. The silence stretched so long I wondered if Marcus had hung up. That boat was used, he said finally. I got a good deal on it. Tyler loves fishing. It was for both of us. You bought a boat with Tyler's college money while telling me you couldn't afford his school clothes. You don't understand what it's like, Ambrose. You have your stable job and your perfect life. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. Sometimes I have to make difficult choices. The difficult choice should have been saying no to the boat and yes to your son's education. This conversation is over. I'm coming over there right now, and we're going to settle this face to face. Marcus, don't. But the line was already dead. I stared at my phone, knowing that the next hour was going to be even more challenging than the phone call had been. 20 minutes later, Marcus's pickup truck screeched into my driveway. I watched through the window as he slammed the door and stormed toward my front porch. His face was red, his hair disheveled, and his hands were clenched into fists. Sarah appeared beside me at the window. Should I call someone? No, he's angry, but he's not dangerous. I'll handle this. Marcus pounded on the front door so hard the windows rattled. I opened it to find him breathing heavily, his eyes wild with fury. You have 5 minutes to fix this, Ambrose. Transfer that money back to Tyler's account, and we can pretend this never happened. That's not going to happen, Marcus. Yes, it is. Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very complicated. I'll file a lawsuit claiming you made a verbal contract to provide for Tyler's education. I'll tell the whole family you're a vindictive monster who punishes children. I'll make sure Emma knows exactly why her cousin's future was destroyed. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me, not wanting Emma to overhear this confrontation. Several neighbors had come outside to watch the scene unfolding in my driveway. Are you threatening me, Marcus? I'm telling you the consequences of your actions. Family loyalty goes both ways, Ambrose. You can't just decide to stop being Tyler's uncle because you're having a bad day. I'm not stopping being his uncle. I'm stopping being his enabler. Marcus laughed bitterly. Enabler. I've been busting my ass trying to raise that kid alone while you sit in your comfortable house judging my parenting. You have no idea what I've been dealing with. Then tell me, Marcus, help me understand. Explain how secretly stealing from Tyler's college fund was helping the situation. I wasn't stealing that money was sitting there doing nothing while Tyler had immediate needs. I was borrowing against his future to take care of his present. Without telling me, without asking permission, without any plan to pay it back. Because I knew you'd say no. I knew you'd lecture me about financial responsibility and make me feel like garbage for not being able to provide everything Tyler needs on my own. For the first time since this whole confrontation began, I heard something other than anger in Marcus's voice. I heard shame and desperation and fear. Marcus, I said more gently, why didn't you just ask me for help directly? Why go through all this deception? His shoulders sagged slightly. Because I'm tired of being the brother who can't get his life together. I'm tired of you always having to rescue me and Tyler. I wanted to handle things myself for once. By lying and stealing, by managing the resources that were available. That money wasn't helping Tyler sitting in a bank account. He needed clothes and school supplies and a chance to feel normal. He needed a father who modeled honesty and integrity. He needed a father who taught him that hurting people has consequences. Marcus's anger flared up again. Don't lecture me about parenting. You have one kid who's had every advantage in life. I'm dealing with a teenager who's been through his parents' divorce and all the chaos that comes with it. Emma has been through challenges too, Marcus. She's watched me work extra hours to support Tyler's family. She's never complained about the sacrifices we've made for her cousin, and today she handled Tyler's cruelty with more maturity than you're showing right now. She's spoiled Ambrose. You've given her everything she wants, and now you're giving her Tyler's college money too. She's going to grow up thinking the world revolves around her. That comment hit me like a physical blow. Spoiled? My daughter is spoiled because I protected her from being humiliated at her own birthday party. She's spoiled because you've never taught her that life isn't fair and people don't always get what they want. And Tyler's entitled because you've never taught him that actions have consequences and other people's feelings matter. We stood there glaring at each other, two brothers who had grown up in the same house, but had developed completely different ideas about responsibility, respect, and family loyalty. This isn't over, Ambrose, Marcus said finally. I meant what I said about calling the family and getting legal advice. That money belongs to Tyler and I'm going to get it back. As I watched him drive away, tires squealing as he reversed out of my driveway, I realized our family was about to be torn apart. The battle lines were being drawn, and everyone we cared about was going to be forced to choose sides. What I didn't know yet was that Tyler's confession was going to reveal the most disturbing truth of all. The cake incident wasn't a teenage impulse or moment of poor judgment. It was a calculated attack that Marcus had not only known about, but actively encouraged. The phone calls started within an hour of Marcus leaving my driveway. First Gerald, then Aunt Patricia, followed by Uncle Robert, my cousin Jennifer, and finally my mother-in-law, Carol. Word was spreading through our extended family faster than wildfire, and everyone seemed to have an opinion about what I had done. Gerald's call was the most difficult. Ambrose, I'm deeply disappointed in you, he began without any greeting. Marcus told me about your vindictive overreaction to a simple childhood mishap. Taking away Tyler's college fund is cruel and completely disproportionate to what happened. It wasn't a simple mishap, Gerald. Tyler deliberately destroyed Emma's birthday cake and showed no remorse. He's 14 years old. 14-year-olds make mistakes. That's how they learn and grow. You don't destroy their entire future over one bad decision. I paced around my kitchen while Sarah cleaned up the remnants of Emma's ruined party. His future isn't destroyed. His free ride is canceled. There's a difference. Don't split hairs with me, young man. That money was Tyler's birthright. Everyone in this family knows you've been saving it for him since he was born. You made a commitment, and commitments matter. Commitments do matter. So does respect for family members. So does taking responsibility for your actions. Gerald's voice grew colder. You're being selfish and spiteful. This is about your wounded pride, not about teaching Tyler any meaningful lesson. You're punishing an innocent child because you can't handle being embarrassed at a party. I'm protecting my daughter from being treated like her feelings don't matter. Emma is fine. Children are resilient. She'll forget about this party in a week, but Tyler will carry the consequences of losing his college fund for the rest of his life. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes with Gerald becoming increasingly accusatory and me becoming increasingly defensive. By the end, he was threatening to cut me out of his will, and I was questioning whether I wanted to be included anyway. Aunt Patricia's call followed a similar pattern, though she focused more on family loyalty and the importance of forgiveness. Your father would be ashamed of how you're treating your brother's child, she said, invoking my deceased father in a way that made my chest tight with anger. My father would be ashamed of a grown man making excuses for his child's deliberately cruel behavior, I replied. Children make mistakes, Ambrose. That's what childhood is for. You're being incredibly harsh. And you're being incredibly dismissive of Emma's feelings? She's your great niece too, but apparently her emotional well-being doesn't matter as much as Tyler's financial future. Uncle Robert took a different approach, focusing on the legal and practical implications. You could get sued over this, you know. If Marcus can prove you made verbal commitments about Tyler's education fund, you might be forced to restore the money anyway. Plus legal fees. Let him try. The account was in my name, funded entirely by my money, with no legal obligations to Tyler. Family relationships aren't always about legal obligations, nephew. Sometimes they're about doing the right thing even when you're angry. I agree completely. That's exactly why I'm teaching Tyler that hurting family members has consequences. But not everyone sided against me. My cousin Jennifer Marcus's ex-wife and Tyler's mother called with a very different perspective. Ambrose, I need to tell you something, she said quietly. Marcus called me screaming about the college fund, and honestly, I'm not surprised it came to this. Tyler's behavior has been getting worse since the divorce, and Marcus refuses to address it. What do you mean? I mean, Tyler has been acting out at school, being disrespectful to teachers, bullying younger kids. When I try to talk to Marcus about it, he says Tyler is just adjusting to the divorce, and I need to be patient. This was news to me. Marcus had never mentioned any behavioral problems at school. How long has this been going on? About a year, maybe longer. Tyler stays with me every other weekend, and I've tried to establish rules and consequences, but Marcus undermines everything I do. He tells Tyler I'm being too strict and that he doesn't have to follow my rules. Why haven't you told me this before? Because Marcus made it clear that family business should stay private. He said involving you would just create more drama and stress for Tyler. I sat down heavily at my kitchen table. Jennifer, what do you think about what Tyler did at Emma's party? I think it's exactly the kind of behavior I've been worried about. Tyler feels entitled to act however he wants because his father never holds him accountable. Marcus always finds someone else to blame. Do you think I was wrong to move the college money? Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. I think you were wrong to wait this long. Tyler needed consequences years ago. Maybe if he had faced some real accountability earlier, he wouldn't have thought it was acceptable to destroy his cousin's birthday party. Marcus is talking about getting lawyers involved. Let him try. I have documentation of Tyler's behavioral problems at school and Marcus's refusal to address them. If this goes to court, it's not going to look good for Marcus. After Jennifer's call, I felt both vindicated and sad. It was comforting to know that someone understood my perspective, but heartbreaking to learn that Tyler's problems were more serious and long-standing than I had realized. Sarah and Emma returned from a walk around the neighborhood, and Emma seemed to be feeling a little better. She had changed out of her birthday dress into comfortable clothes and was carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" I asked, pulling her into a hug. "Better, I think." Mom explained that sometimes people do mean things when they're unhappy about other parts of their lives. She said it doesn't excuse what Tyler did, but it helps me understand that it wasn't really about me. The wisdom in her response made my chest swell with pride. At 12 years old, Emma was already showing more emotional maturity than many of the adults who had called to criticize my decision. "That's absolutely right, honey. Tyler's behavior says nothing about you and everything about his own struggles. Are you in trouble with the family because of what you did for me?" I exchanged glances with Sarah. We had tried to shield Emma from the fallout, but she was perceptive enough to sense the tension. "Some people think I made the wrong choice," I admitted. "But I don't regret protecting you and standing up for what's right." "What did you do exactly?" "Mom said you moved some money, but I don't really understand." Sarah and I had discussed how much to tell Emma about the college fund situation. We decided honesty was the best approach, with age-appropriate explanations. I had been saving money for Tyler's college education since he was born, I explained. After what happened today, I decided to move that money to your college fund instead. Emma's eyes widened. That was Tyler's college money. It was money I was saving for Tyler's college. But Tyler chose to hurt you today, and his father chose to defend that behavior instead of teaching him better. So I chose to redirect my financial support towards someone who appreciates it and treats family members with respect. How much money was it? Enough to pay for most of college, nearly $50,000. Emma was quiet for a long time processing this information. Will Tyler be able to go to college now? Yes, but he and his father will have to figure out how to pay for it themselves. There are scholarships, student loans, work-study programs. Millions of students find ways to pay for college without their uncles funding the entire cost. Are you sure this was the right thing to do, Dad? The question caught me off guard. After all the phone calls from angry relatives and all my own second-guessing having my daughter ask directly was both challenging and clarifying. Emma, what do you think would be the right thing to do? She considered carefully before answering. I think Tyler should have consequences for what he did. But I also think maybe you should give him a chance to earn the money back if he really changes his behavior. The suggestion was so thoughtful and generous that it took my breath away. Here was my daughter hours after being humiliated and hurt, already thinking about forgiveness and second chances. That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart. Maybe we can explore that possibility if Tyler shows genuine remorse and makes real changes. But as I tucked Emma into bed that night, reading her favorite story about a brave princess who stands up to bullies, I couldn't shake the feeling that this family crisis was far from over. My phone buzzed with text messages from relatives throughout the evening. Some offered support, others delivered criticism. Tyler himself sent a message that Sarah intercepted before showing it to me. Your dad's crazy, and my mom says you're spoiled, the text read. The message revealed more than Tyler probably intended. It showed that Marcus was already poisoning Tyler against Emma, teaching him to blame others for his problems rather than examining his own behavior. It showed that the lessons Tyler was learning at home were exactly the opposite of what he needed to become a decent human being. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to Sarah's steady breathing beside me, I thought about my own childhood with Marcus. We'd grown up in the same house with the same parents, but we had learned very different lessons about responsibility and accountability. I remembered countless times when Marcus had broken my toys or gotten me in trouble, only to have our parents excuse his behavior because he was going through a phase or just being a kid. I remembered being told to be the bigger person and set a good example for your younger brother. The pattern had continued into adulthood. When Marcus couldn't keep a job, I was expected to help with his rent. When he couldn't manage his money, I was expected to contribute to Tyler's needs. When he made poor choices, I was expected to help clean up the mess. But somewhere along the way, being the responsible brother had become enabling the irresponsible one. My attempts to help Marcus had actually prevented him from learning to handle his own problems. And now Tyler was following the same pattern, expecting others to fix his mistakes and excuse his behavior. The cycle had to stop somewhere. It might as well stop with me. 3 days after the party incident, a certified letter arrived at my office. The return address showed the law firm of Hartwell Barnes and Associates, and my stomach dropped as I signed for the delivery. Inside was a formal demand letter on legal letterhead written in the intimidating language that lawyers use to make simple disputes sound like federal crimes. The letter claimed that I had entered into an implied oral contract to provide for Tyler's educational expenses and had breached that contract by transferring the funds. It demanded immediate restoration of the money plus interest and threatened legal action if I didn't comply within 10 business days. I immediately called David Chen, the attorney, who had handled the legal work when Sarah and I bought our house. David had a reputation for being both thorough and practical, exactly what I needed for this situation. Let me read through this carefully, David said after I forwarded him the demand letter. Can you come in tomorrow morning? We should discuss your options in detail. That afternoon, Emma came home from school unusually quiet. She dropped her backpack by the front door and headed straight to her room without her usual cheerful greeting. How was school, honey? Sarah called after her. Fine, Emma replied, but her tone suggested otherwise. Sarah and I exchanged concerned glances. Emma had seemed to be recovering well from the party incident, but perhaps the emotional impact was deeper than we had realized. 20 minutes later, Sarah emerged from Emma's room with a grim expression. We need to talk, she said, gesturing toward the kitchen. What's wrong? Emma's having problems at school because of what happened at the party. Apparently, some parents have been gossiping about your overreaction, and their kids are asking Emma questions she doesn't know how to answer. My jaw tightened. What kinds of questions? Things like whether you really stole Tyler's college money, and whether Emma feels bad about ruining Tyler's future. Some kids are saying their parents think you went too far. And what is Emma saying? She's trying to defend you, but she's also confused because she's hearing different versions of the story from different people. Mrs. Hoffman apparently told her daughter that family disputes should stay private and children shouldn't be involved. I felt a surge of anger toward Mrs. Hoffman, who lived 2 streets over and had attended the party. She had seemed supportive when she left that day, offering to help clean up and expressing sympathy for Emma. Apparently, her public position was different from her private one. I'll call the school, I said. This gossip needs to stop. I already did. The principal said they can't control what parents discuss with their children, but they'll watch for any bullying or inappropriate behavior toward Emma. That evening, while Emma worked on homework in her room, Sarah and I sat down to discuss how to handle the growing community pressure. Several neighbors had made pointed comments about family drama and the importance of working things out privately. The local parents' Facebook group, which Sarah monitored occasionally, apparently contained multiple threads debating my decision. Maybe we should consider family counseling, Sarah suggested. Not because I think you were wrong, but because this situation is affecting Emma more than we realized. I think that's a good idea. We all need help processing what happened and figuring out how to move forward. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. The caller ID showed my brother-in-law, Mike, Sarah's younger brother, who lived in Portland. Hey, Ambrose. I heard about what happened at Emma's party. I just wanted you to know that Linda and I completely support your decision. Linda was Mike's wife, and they had 2 children slightly older than Emma. It was reassuring to hear from family members who understood our perspective. Thanks, Mike. It's been a challenging few days. I can imagine. Listen, I know this is probably difficult to talk about, but Linda wanted me to ask you something. When Marcus was married to Jennifer, did you ever notice Tyler acting aggressively toward other kids? The question surprised me. Not that I can remember. Why? Because Jennifer called Linda last night. They've kept in touch since the divorce, and Jennifer told her some things about Tyler's behavior that we found pretty concerning. What kind of things? Bullying incidents at school, problems with authority figures, destructive behavior when he doesn't get his way. Jennifer said Marcus always makes excuses and never follows through with consequences. This aligned with what Jennifer had told me directly, but hearing it confirmed by another source made me realize the situation was even more serious than I had understood. Mike, do you think I made the right choice about the college fund? Honestly, I think you've been enabling Marcus and Tyler for years, and it's about time someone held them accountable. What Tyler did at Emma's party wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was deliberate cruelty, and the way Marcus defended it was disgusting. After Mike's call, Sarah and I spent another hour discussing the family dynamics that had led to this crisis. We realized that our desire to be supportive and generous had sometimes prevented us from setting appropriate boundaries. I keep thinking about Thanksgiving last year, Sarah said. Remember how Tyler complained about everything? The food, the games Emma wanted to play, the movies we watched? He acted like being with our family was a huge imposition. I did remember. Tyler had been sullen and critical throughout the holiday visit, but Marcus had dismissed it as typical teenage behavior. When Tyler made snide comments about Emma's enthusiasm for family traditions, Marcus had laughed it off as harmless teasing. And remember Christmas 2 years ago when Tyler broke Emma's new art supplies and Marcus said it was an accident? That incident came flooding back. Emma had received a deluxe art kit with expensive colored pencils and specialty papers. Tyler had somehow managed to spill an entire glass of soda across the kit, ruining several items. At the time, Marcus's explanation that it was an accident had seemed plausible. Now I wondered if it had been another deliberate act of destruction. How did we miss all these warning signs? I asked. Because we wanted to believe Marcus was right about Tyler just going through difficult phases. Because we cared about Tyler and wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. And because challenging Marcus's parenting always resulted in family drama that we preferred to avoid. Sarah nodded. But avoiding the drama didn't make the problems go away. It just allowed them to get worse. The next morning, I met with David Chen in his downtown office. David was a calm, methodical lawyer in his 50s who specialized in family law and contract disputes. I've reviewed the demand letter and done some research, he began. Legally, your brother doesn't have much of a case. The college fund was in your name, funded entirely by your contributions, with no written agreement or legal obligation to Tyler. But what about this implied oral contract claim? It's possible Marcus could argue that your statements about saving for Tyler's education created an expectation or promise. But proving that in court would be difficult and expensive. More importantly, even if he could prove such a promise existed, your brother's own conduct would likely void any obligation. David explained that Tyler's destructive behavior and Marcus's misuse of the funds would be powerful defenses against any legal claim. He also mentioned that family court judges generally didn't look favorably on parents who enabled their children's bad behavior. What's this going to cost if Marcus actually files a lawsuit? If he's serious about pursuing this, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000 in legal fees for a case that he's very unlikely to win. The real question is whether he's willing to spend that much money and damage family relationships permanently over a dispute he probably can't win. Knowing Marcus, he might do it just to prove a point. In that case, we'll be ready. I'd recommend documenting everything Tyler's behavioral history, Marcus's unauthorized withdrawals from the college fund witness statements about the party incident. If this goes to court, we want to be thoroughly prepared. As I drove home from David's office, I realized that the legal threat was actually the least of my concerns. The real damage was happening to our family relationships and to Emma's sense of security in her community. That afternoon, Tyler sent another text message, this time directly to my phone instead of Emma's. My dad says you stole my college money because you hate me. Is that true? The message revealed how Marcus was framing the situation for Tyler. Instead of helping his son understand the connection between his actions and their consequences, Marcus was portraying me as the villain who had arbitrarily decided to punish Tyler. I showed the message to Sarah, and we discussed how to respond. We decided that honesty was the best approach, even if Tyler wasn't ready to hear it. Tyler, I replied, I moved the money because your behavior at Emma's party was unacceptable, and because your father defended that behavior instead of teaching you better. I don't hate you, but I can't support someone who treats family members cruelly and shows no remorse. Tyler's response came quickly. You're just mad because I said the party was boring. Everyone thought it was boring. You can't steal people's money because they hurt your feelings. The text revealed how little Tyler understood about what had actually happened. In his mind, he had simply expressed an opinion and was being unfairly punished for honesty. I decided to try a different approach. Tyler, imagine if someone came to your birthday party and deliberately destroyed your cake while calling your party boring. How would you feel? I wouldn't cry about it like a baby. Emma didn't cry like a baby. She was hurt because someone she cared about deliberately tried to ruin her special day. That's not being a baby. That's being human. Whatever. My dad says you'll change your mind when the lawyers get involved. That exchange convinced me that Tyler wasn't ready for genuine accountability or growth. He was still focused on defending his actions rather than understanding their impact. Until that changed, restoring his college fund would only reinforce his sense of entitlement. But I was about to discover that Tyler's texts were just the beginning. The real revelation was coming from an unexpected source, and it would change everything I thought I knew about what had happened at Emma's party. A week after the legal demand letter arrived, my phone rang with a call from Jennifer Marcus's ex-wife. Her voice sounded strained and urgent. "Ambrose, I need to see you in person. There's something about Tyler and Marcus that you need to know, and I can't discuss it over the phone." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in downtown Scottsdale, halfway between our homes. Jennifer arrived looking tired and worried, carrying a manila folder that she clutched tightly as she sat down across from me. "I've been wrestling with whether to tell you this," she began, "but after hearing about Marcus's legal threats, I think you need to know what you're really dealing with." She opened the folder and pulled out several documents, bank statements, emails, and what appeared to be court filings. 2 years ago, during our divorce proceedings, Marcus tried to claim Tyler's college fund as a marital asset. He wanted to use it to pay his attorney fees. I stared at the documents in shock. "What do you mean he tried to claim it?" "He filed paperwork with the court arguing that since the money was being saved for Tyler's benefit, it should be considered part of our community property and subject to division in the divorce." Jennifer slid a court document across the table. It was a motion filed by Marcus's divorce attorney requesting that the college fund be included in the property settlement. I had to hire my own lawyer to fight this. I contacted the bank directly and provided documentation that you were the sole account holder and contributor. The judge ultimately ruled that Marcus had no claim to the money, but it cost me $3,000 in legal fees to defend against his attempt. "Why didn't you tell me this was happening?" "Because Marcus begged me not to. He said it would ruin his relationship with you and destroy Tyler's future. He promised he would drop the claim if I kept quiet about it." I felt sick to my stomach. While I had been working overtime to build Tyler's college fund, Marcus had been plotting to steal it for his own purposes. The trust I had placed in my brother for 14 years had been completely misplaced. "Jennifer, there's more, isn't there?" She nodded grimly. "Marcus has been telling Tyler for months that you're too controlling and that your family gets special treatment while Tyler has to do without. He's been poisoning Tyler against you systematically." "What do you mean?" "Tyler stays with me every other weekend, and he often repeats things Marcus tells him about your family. Marcus has convinced Tyler that Emma is spoiled and that you favor her over him. He's told Tyler that Emma gets expensive parties and gifts while Tyler can't even get new clothes." The pieces were starting to fall into place. Tyler's hostility at the party hadn't emerged from nowhere. It had been carefully cultivated by his father's resentment and jealousy. "But the worst part," Jennifer continued, "is what Tyler told me last weekend. He admitted that the cake incident wasn't spontaneous." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Marcus encouraged Tyler to teach Emma a lesson about being grateful. He told Tyler that your family needed to understand how good you have it compared to families like theirs." Jennifer pulled out her phone and showed me a text message thread between Tyler and a friend. In the messages, Tyler bragged about planning to mess up Emma's fancy party and teach her that not everyone gets everything they want. "He planned it," I whispered, "with Marcus's encouragement. Maybe not the specific action of destroying the cake, but definitely something disruptive." Marcus told Tyler that Emma needed to learn that life isn't always perfect. I sat back in my chair, struggling to process this information. The party incident hadn't been teenage impulsivity or emotional dysfunction. It had been a calculated attack planned by a bitter father and carried out by his manipulated son. "Why is Tyler telling you this now?" "Because he's scared about the college fund and starting to realize that his father's advice might have been wrong. He's also been getting in trouble at school, and his counselor has been helping him understand how his actions affect other people." Jennifer reached across the table and touched my hand. "Ambrose Tyler wants to apologize to Emma directly." He's starting to understand that what he did was wrong, not just because it had consequences for him, but because it hurt someone he actually cares about. What about Marcus? Does he know Tyler is talking to you about this? No, and Tyler is afraid to tell him. Marcus has been coaching Tyler on what to say if there's a custody hearing or legal proceeding. He's told Tyler to claim that you've always treated him differently than Emma and that moving the college money proves you don't really care about him. This revelation hit me like a physical blow. Marcus wasn't just defending Tyler's behavior. He was actively undermining any possibility of Tyler learning from his mistakes and growing as a person. Jennifer, would Tyler be willing to tell me directly what Marcus said to him? I think so, but he's scared. He knows his father will be furious if he finds out Tyler is telling the truth about what happened. We arranged for Tyler to call me that evening when Marcus was at work. Tyler's voice was shaky and small when my phone rang at 7 o'clock. Uncle Ambrose, Jennifer said you wanted to talk to me. Tyler, I want you to know that no matter what happens between your father and me, I still care about you. But I need to understand what really happened at Emma's party. There was a long pause before Tyler began speaking in a rush, as if he needed to get the words out before he lost his courage. Dad told me that Emma's parties were always over the top, and that you spent too much money making her feel special while I had to wear thrift store clothes. He said you favored Emma because she was your real daughter, and I was just your nephew. Each word felt like a knife in my chest. Tyler, that's not true. I've been saving for your college education since you were born. I've worked extra hours for 14 years to make sure you'd have opportunities. I know that now, Tyler said, his voice cracking. But Dad made it sound like you were showing off how much better your family was than ours. He said Emma needed to learn that not everyone gets princess parties and perfect lives. So you decided to destroy her cake? Dad said I should teach her what disappointment feels like. He didn't tell me exactly what to do, but he said I should make sure she understood that life isn't always fair. I thought about just complaining or being rude. But then I got angry seeing how happy she was, and I just wanted to make her feel as bad as I felt. The honesty in Tyler's voice was heartbreaking. He had been manipulated by his father's bitterness into attacking an innocent child who had never done anything to hurt him. Tyler, do you understand now why what you did was wrong? Yeah. Emma didn't deserve to have her party ruined. She never did anything mean to me. I was just angry about stuff that wasn't her fault. What about the money? Do you understand why I moved your college fund? Another long pause. At first, I thought you were just trying to hurt me. But Jennifer explained that actions have consequences and that you were trying to teach me something important. She said maybe if I show that I've really learned from this, you might give me another chance. The conversation continued for another 30 minutes. Tyler answered my questions honestly, admitting that Marcus had been feeding him resentment for months and encouraging him to view my family as selfish and privileged. He also revealed that Marcus had been coaching him to blame me for all their financial problems. Uncle Ambrose, Tyler said, as our conversation was ending. Is there any way I could earn back your trust? I know I messed up really bad, but I want to make it right. The question gave me hope for the first time since this whole crisis began. Tyler was finally taking responsibility for his actions and asking the right questions about making amends. Tyler, I think there might be a way forward, but it's going to require some big changes in how you and your father handle problems. Are you willing to work on that? Yes, sir, I really am. After hanging up, I called Sarah and Emma into the living room. It was time for our family to discuss what we had learned and how we wanted to move forward. Emma listened carefully as I explained Tyler's confession and his desire to apologize. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes before speaking. I'm glad he wants to say he's sorry, she said finally. But I don't think sorry is enough by itself. If he really wants to make it right, he needs to show that he's changed. Once again, Emma's wisdom surprised me. She intuitively understood that genuine accountability requires more than words. It requires sustained behavioral change. What do you think would show you that he's really changed? I asked. Maybe he could write me a real letter explaining why what he did was wrong, and what he's going to do differently. And maybe he could do something nice for other kids to show that he's learned how to treat people better. Her suggestions were thoughtful and mature. They focused on Tyler's character development rather than punishment, which gave me hope that healing was possible for our family. That night, as I lay in bed, reviewing everything I had learned, I realized that the college fund had never really been the issue. The real issue was whether Tyler could learn from his mistakes and develop into a person who treated others with respect and kindness. Marcus's attempts to manipulate the situation had actually created an opportunity for Tyler to break free from the toxic patterns his father had been teaching him. With Jennifer's support and Tyler's genuine remorse, there was a chance for real growth and healing. But first, Tyler was going to have to choose between his father's path of blame and resentment and a new path of accountability and respect. That choice would determine not just whether he earned back his college fund, but what kind of man he was going to become. 3 weeks after Tyler's confession, everything changed. Jennifer had been documenting Tyler's sessions with his school counselor, and the progress was remarkable. Tyler was not only taking responsibility for the party incident, but also addressing the deeper behavioral patterns that had led to it. He wrote Emma a 4-page letter that brought tears to my eyes. In it, he didn't just apologize for destroying her cake. He apologized for all the times he had been dismissive or cruel to her over the years. He acknowledged that his father had influenced his attitude but took full responsibility for choosing to act on that influence. Dear Emma, the letter began, I know saying sorry isn't enough for what I did at your birthday party, but I want you to know that I understand now how wrong I was. I wasn't just mean to you that day. I've been mean to you for a long time because my dad told me things that made me angry and jealous. But being angry isn't an excuse for hurting people, especially someone who never did anything wrong to me. Emma read the letter twice before telling me she wanted to talk to Tyler on the phone. Their conversation lasted nearly an hour, with Emma asking thoughtful questions about Tyler's feelings and Tyler answering with an honesty that showed real emotional growth. I think he's really sorry, Dad, Emma told me afterward. But I also think he needs to prove he's changed before everything goes back to normal. That's when Emma made a suggestion that surprised everyone. What if Tyler has to earn back the college money by helping other kids? Like volunteering at birthday parties for kids whose families don't have much money, or helping with school events that make children happy. Her idea was brilliant. Instead of simply rewarding Tyler for apologizing, we could create opportunities for him to demonstrate sustained behavioral change while making positive contributions to other children's lives. I discussed the proposal with Jennifer, who thought it was perfect. Tyler needs to understand that redemption requires action, not just words, she said. And helping other kids will teach him empathy in a way that lectures never could. Tyler embraced the challenge enthusiastically. He began volunteering at the local Boys and Girls Club, helping with children's activities and birthday celebrations. He also started a peer mediation program at his school, using his own experience with poor choices to help other students resolve conflicts constructively. The transformation wasn't immediate or perfect, but it was genuine. Tyler's grades improved dramatically. His behavioral problems at school disappeared. Most importantly, he began showing real kindness and consideration for others, especially younger children. Meanwhile, Marcus's legal threats evaporated, as Tyler's recorded confession made it clear that his father had manipulated the situation. When Marcus realized that Tyler could testify about being coached to teach Emma a lesson, he quietly withdrew his demand for the college money. But the real breakthrough came when Gerald, my father-in-law, called to apologize. Ambrose, I owe you a tremendous apology, he said. I've been talking to Jennifer about what really happened, and I'm ashamed of how I reacted. You were protecting Emma and trying to teach Tyler accountability, and I should have supported you instead of criticizing you. Gerald's change of heart influenced other family members who had initially sided against me. Aunt Patricia sent a long email acknowledging that she had been wrong to dismiss Tyler's behavior as normal teenage rebellion. Uncle Robert called to express his admiration for how I had handled a difficult situation. "You stuck to your principles even when the whole family was against you," he said. "That takes courage, and I respect you for it." Most surprisingly, Marcus himself began to change. The family crisis had forced him to confront his own role in Tyler's behavioral problems and his pattern of avoiding responsibility for difficult situations. "I've been going to therapy," he told me during a tense but necessary conversation 6 weeks after the party incident. "I'm starting to understand how my own resentment and jealousy affected Tyler. I was angry about my financial struggles, and instead of dealing with those feelings constructively, I took them out on you and your family." Marcus admitted that he had been envious of my stable career and successful marriage for years. Instead of working on his own problems, he had convinced himself that I was somehow responsible for his difficulties. "I taught Tyler to blame other people for his problems because that's what I was doing," Marcus continued. "I taught him to see your success as unfair instead of teaching him to work for his own success." The conversation was difficult and emotional, but it was also healing. For the first time in our adult lives, Marcus and I were having an honest discussion about our relationship and our different approaches to responsibility and family. "What can I do to make this right?" Marcus asked. "You can support Tyler's efforts to change instead of undermining them. You can stop making excuses for bad behavior and start teaching accountability. And you can work on your own issues so you don't pass your problems on to your son." Marcus agreed to family therapy with Tyler, and their relationship began to improve as Marcus learned to set boundaries and expectations instead of enablement and blame. 3 months after the party incident, I made a decision that surprised everyone. I reinstated Tyler's college fund, but with conditions. "Tyler," I explained during a family meeting that included Marcus, Jennifer, Sarah, and Emma, "you've shown real growth and genuine change over the past few months. You've taken responsibility for your actions, made amends to Emma, and demonstrated that you're committed to treating others with respect." Tyler's eyes filled with tears as I continued. "I'm restoring your college fund, but it comes with ongoing requirements. You need to maintain good grades, continue your volunteer work, and keep up with counseling. Most importantly, you need to continue showing kindness and respect to family members and others. If you slip back into old patterns of blaming others or treating people badly, the fund will be paused again. This isn't a punishment, it's a tool to help you stay committed to being the person you want to be." Tyler nodded eagerly. "I understand, Uncle Ambrose, and I promise I won't let you down again." Emma spoke up from across the table. "Tyler, I'm proud of how hard you've worked to change. I forgive you for what happened at my party, and I'm excited to be friends again." The conversation dissolved into tears and hugs as our family began to heal from months of pain and conflict. 6 months later, we held Emma's 13th birthday party. Tyler was there helping to set up decorations and making sure all the younger kids felt included in the games. When it came time to sing "Happy Birthday," Tyler's voice was one of the loudest and most enthusiastic. After the party, as we cleaned up together, Tyler pulled me aside. "Uncle Ambrose, I know I can never undo what I did last year, but I want you to know how grateful I am that you didn't give up on me. If you had just let it go or made excuses like everyone wanted you to, I would never have learned to be a better person." His words reminded me why standing up for what's right is always worth the temporary conflict it might create. Children need adults who will hold them accountable with love, even when it's difficult or unpopular. Today, Tyler is a senior in high school with a 3.8 GPA and plans to major in social work. He wants to help other teenagers who are struggling with family problems and poor choices. His college fund, now grown to nearly $60,000, will help him achieve that goal. Emma is thriving as a confident, compassionate young woman who understands that standing up for herself and others is not only acceptable but necessary. She recently started a peer support group at her school for students who have experienced bullying. Marcus and I have rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. He still struggles sometimes, but he no longer expects others to fix his problems or enable his poor choices. Most importantly, our family has learned that true love sometimes requires tough decisions. Protecting people from the consequences of their actions isn't kindness, it's enabling. Teaching accountability, even when it's hard, is one of the greatest gifts we can give to the people we care about. The college fund crisis taught us all that money is never really about money. It's about values, relationships, and the kind of people we choose to become. When we invest in character development with the same commitment we invest in financial security, everyone benefits. As I watch Tyler mentor younger kids at the Boys and Girls Club, and Emma stand up for classmates who need support, I know that the painful lessons of that birthday party crisis have yielded the most important returns of all young people who understand that how we treat others defines who we are. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes saying no to what people want is the only way to give them what they need. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the chance to learn from their mistakes and become better than they thought possible. I've learned that when we love people enough to hold them accountable, we give them the opportunity to discover their own strength, compassion, and integrity. That's a lesson worth far more than any college fund could ever be. What would you have done if you were in my situation? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect one family member from another's harmful behavior? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of accountability in family relationships. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about real families navigating complex situations with courage and love. Thank you for listening, and I hope your own family relationships are filled with the respect, understanding, and genuine care that everyone deserves.